Hello and welcome back on up to the casting stage, where I honestly cannot wait for this match to begin because our two players are Naniwa and Hawk.
Yes, they are, and it's going to be an intriguing matchup, there's no question about that. And some people haven't heard of Hawk. Everyone, of course, has heard of Naniwa, but I'm really interested to see how this goes, because this is an opportunity for Hawk to really make his mark.
Yeah, Hawk has been performing brilliantly at a number of, I would say, less publicized live and online events. I think most notably there was an ESWC qualifier at PAX where he took out both Suppi and Idra 3-0 each in best of fives. He has a really unusual style, particularly in the late game, where he doesn't emphasize the Broodlords as much in a lot of circumstances, tends to emphasize layer tech units like the Infestor and Mutalisk, but of course Naniwa is just the master of these weird timings, these unusual opening build orders, and has just shown incredible play at last MLG.
Yeah, certainly. Excellent control for Naniwa, without question. What makes this match interesting is, going into it, based on the TLPD statistics, we're looking at a guy that has really, really good Zerg versus Protoss in the form of Hawk, yet PvZ has historically been Naniwa's weakest matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think most notably getting eliminated by Johnny Rico at the recent Team Liquid Star League, always having Zerg be his Achilles heel in major events, but Naniwa has been saying that he's a new level of play, that he has been training so much that he looks at his old PvZ and kind of goes, ugh, gross, right? He has completely shifted away from things that he described as gimmicky, and I'm thrilled to see what's going to happen because the match is starting now!
Yes, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for Quantic Naniwa Quantic Hawk versus Myonix Naniwa?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Daybreak, everyone's favorite map, without question. One way or the other, aside from that question, one way or the other, we have this fellow right here looking to make a name for himself in this particular tournament. In the blue trunks, playing Zerg to the northeast, it is none other than Quantic Hawk.
And spawning down in the bottom left corner as the red Protoss, it is Myonix Naniwa.
Now, there's one thing I'll say, Sean, and that's that statistics don't necessarily prove much, especially when you talk about people's best matchup, their worst matchup, what it was historically, because you can get these really crazy shifts going on.
Looks like there was the little note from Naniwa. It looks like he is enjoying a little bit of the rave action.
Yes, Naniwa, known as a very straight-edge kind of guy.
And of course, we can go ahead and take a look at Hawk's first-person perspective. This is one of the nice things that we have going in this tournament. We get the opportunity to see how the eye tracking is working for these players throughout. So throughout the event, we will get the opportunity to see where they're looking, what is going on, literally exactly with their eye, and we will get after-the-fact statistics for that. In the meantime, we do see that there is the, Total Biscuit disconnecting, Total Biscuit in a panic. He thought, oh my god, what if I lose this? And it shows up on my record, better pull the plug. That's what you thought, John.
Yes, that was what was running through my mind at that very moment. My god, how do you manage it?
Well, that's okay. It looks like... Quick,
quick,
put the camera to us.
All right, no, I mean, you can say LAN all you want, but unfortunately, it's actually just this PC.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
as much as I love scrolling around a static screen, it gives me lots of time to figure out where the drones are going to mine. Unfortunately, this is not quite that.
Yeah, what actually happened is, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the scene in 300, with that empty, bottomless pit. John was just like, and in the top right corner, and he just kicked right through the computer. It's actually in shambles on the floor.
Yes. Lag, you'll find plenty of them down there.
In the meantime, we do see yet again Naniwa doing something very unorthodox in the average PVZ, going for a gateway first opening. Has not yet actually constructed himself a pylon, which is a very surprising play. Hopefully that wasn't attributed to one of the moments of disconnection there, but nope, looks like it's all part of his expected build as he is building that pylon at the front of his base. Naniwa known for just having some of the most refined, crisp openings you will ever see.
Oh yes, and honestly, when it comes down to Naniwa placing that pylon, placing the gateway, there's no question that he did it on purpose. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and to go through some of the logic of this, why get the gateway at this time and then not do anything with it? You get the gateway then, so that way if your opponent has 6 or 7 pooled you, you will see it, and you can instantly chrono boost out a Zealot and be A-OK, fine, happy, and dandy. But in the circumstance where you see nothing, you know your opponent went for something long-term, so you expand and then get a slightly delayed but still very, very, very fast Warp Gate tech. So we will see the Stalker, perhaps 2 Stalkers pop out, and no doubt a 4 Warp Gate pressure from Naniwa.
Yeah, but it's also wonderful because you just don't need that forge down as early.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to play super defensive, and as many people have pointed out, there are times when placing down the forge is essentially giving a free pass to the Zerg to drone for the next 8 minutes on 3 bases, and unfortunately the 2 ways of kind of getting out of that have both been mapped out pretty well by Zerg players.
And of course, Naniwa is not one to give free edges in any matchup. Always wants to make you fight for it. So now Quantic Hawk looks like he's doing the appropriate response, which is to pull back, gas, go straight for plus speed. Occasionally you'll see players even go Lair and Roach on a very low base count. Both are acceptable, and in general, the Zerg player will not just roll over and die to this unless he does throw down the third base very swiftly.
There's Stargate play on the way up here for Naniwa. Well, well.
I like it.
Yeah, it's great on this map. Absolutely love it. All sorts of possibilities, a couple of different ways of making it work.
Yeah, you definitely get at least 4 Overlords. This one is almost always here, and then you almost always get one here and here on these little pick areas. Occasionally you'll have one there as well. But, and of course, this closest one, so there certainly ends up being a whole lot of benefit gained. But most importantly of all, a Void Ray denies the third base for a long time.
Stalker gonna poke up here and just see what it can do. Maybe try and draw the queen out of position. He's able to do that. Now, what I'm kind of concerned about here for Hawk is he's playing a big-name player. He's on a big stage. He's got a chance to prove himself, and I'm seeing him being just a little bit impetuous, taking more damage than he needs to here.
Yeah.
Bit jittery.
Looks like Naniwa, again, not going to try to deal damage so much as he is going to try to not take damage. Naniwa now backing up and going for a more standard-looking formation still. Not a single cannon in sight, but with that Void Ray coming up and with soon enough a +1 attack, Naniwa setting himself up very nicely for the late game. Thrilled to see if he's going to be going for double Void Ray. Can really mess with players who are trying to take their third while cutting corners with queens.
Well, let's see what it can do there. The lair more than halfway done at the moment. Double Evolution Chamber coming down, which is a little late considering the Void Ray is going to pop out. Is he going to just hang around with a single Void Ray, build a second, or no, it's going to be the Phoenix follow-up, just a little bit more standard there, and gives him just a little bit more utility as well. Going double Void Ray can be a bit of a problem, especially if you end up just running right into a wall when your opponent has prepared for something like that.
There's Naniwa now just taking the opportunity to pick off Overlords. Now, when your Zerg opponent is low on bases, in other words, when he doesn't open 3 bases, he's going to be behind on minerals, but he's going to be ahead on gas. You'll see Zerg players very quickly take all 4 geysers. And very smartly, Naniwa is hunting Overlords first and foremost, because he wants to make sure he punishes the fact that the Zerg is already behind on minerals. He wants to make the Zerg more behind on minerals.
He's doing a fairly decent job of it so far, and that's it. 3 Void Ray play. Okay, well, we were saying that he's kind of reinvented his Protoss vs. Zerg style lately, and this reminds me of a rather old-school kind of build indeed, where Void Rays were super effective, but going up to what looks to be 6 gateways total, plus Void Ray and the +1. That is a classic. It is a bit late on the +1, so I don't know what kind of timing he's trying to accomplish, but I have to wonder if Hawk suspects there will be that many Void Rays coming at him.
Yeah, this is a really nice position to be in as Naniwa, but Hawk has set himself up very well, too. I mean, he got himself a very early layer, but wasn't timid about taking this third base. Very often you'll see Zergs just go, yeah, I can't, he's going to have too much stuff, and kind of abandon shit. But we will see Hawk churn out a lot of infestors. 30 lings coming out, don't really want to make too much more than that unless you park yourself here and you see nothing. That burrow is going to open up huge possibilities for Hawk. He's going to see exactly what's up. He's going to go by the watchtower. Will he burrow? If he doesn't burrow, actually lift from Naniwa there.
All right, well, let's see what he can do. The push is coming through there. That's an ideal opportunity to try and block off that third. Get some nice scouting information about the timing of the base. This push from Naniwa looking pretty strong. Infestors are on their way. They're going to pop a really nice timing. This is actually really nice, crisp build order here from Hawk. Just at the right kind of time. Infestors are going to pop out. But if they end up popping out of the third, they're going to die almost instantly. Thankfully, they do not.
Well, it looks like Naniwa has certainly caught Hawk off guard, but Naniwa has walled himself in. He's made his intentions known. He will not be going for any sort of long-term play. Will there be any additional spine crawlers planted down?
Hello.
Ooh, nice little pick off
Gets him
here.
just before the +1 as well, which is absolutely wonderful.
That was a brilliantly executed little tactic there by Hawk, but Hawk has to be careful. He does have this huge army swinging in at his front gates. He has to be able to have an appropriate response, almost exclusively Zealots incoming. Naniwa with 4 Void Rays. What a hell of a play.
It really is, and it's highly unusual, honestly, to see this from him, and I'm loving it so far. The thing is, how on earth do you hold it? 7 Zealots being warped in at a time. Gotta watch out for those infestors. Decent fungal growth, but not great.
Are the infested Terrans going to be enough? The Zealots are tearing them down, doing short work against them. Fungal growth keeps them pinned for a while, but you need so many fungals to deal all that damage to Zealots.
And he doesn't have it.
Oh no, that is a terrible situation when your ramp gets force fielded, the Zealot stream, and it looks like it's going to be all up to these Zerglings that were trapped behind. More infested Terrans get thrown out, but with that +1 down, I don't know Hawk quite has enough, especially with those Void Rays charged.
No, don't think so. Hawk is going down to a very powerful 2-base play right here. That was a nice fungal in the center. I still don't think it's going to be enough because he has no answer to 4 Void Rays.
Hawk still hanging in there. And
GG! Wow.
Naniwa takes a win.
Great start for Naniwa. Really nicely planned out build indeed. There's no argument on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those counterintuitive concepts where, you know, you think about getting fungal growth on Zealots. They're so small, they pack together so tightly. So you shouldn't make Zealots if your opponent is getting a ton of fungals, right? Well, the problem is, in those early game situations, you just have the Zerglings. And you need to spend 5, 6, 7 fungals to pick off injured Zealots even. So suddenly the Zealots just are delayed for about 10 seconds. And then they just keep
come at you anyway.
forward. Yeah,
and you add into the mix the 4 Void Rays, and you're then thinking about 2 targets that you need to deal with your infestors. If you have no method to shoot the Void Rays, then you're like, oh, but what I need infested Terrans, but I also need fungals, and oh, I don't have that energy and that timing that we were talking about struck as the infestors were coming out. Okay, 7 infestors each have 1 fungal thanks to pathogen glands, and that is it. That's all they have, and then with 2 bases, he just rolls on over.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a very clean, straightforward attack from Naniwa, but you have to keep in mind that this was all kind of set up by Naniwa at the start with that early gateway play. And then he sort of checks, are you taking an early third? No. All right, sweet. I will transition straight into this Zealot-heavy Void Ray play. There's only so many 2-base threats that you can do. If it was a 3-base play, then there could have been a Spore Crawler, Roach, and no layer at all. Would have been a slower tech from Hawk, but would have been a little easier to defend that all in.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see if he can defend the next one. Just setting up the next game at the moment. Naniwa's only going to get to play that once, honestly. I don't think that's going to be a card he's going to bring out again. Naniwa's control is excellent, but still, that's an interesting gambit, I think, to pull off at this stage, especially considering there are potentially more dangerous Zerg opponents later down the line, and he plays that card so early.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that Naniwa he's the sort of player who will have builds that don't matter who the opponent is as much as what the race of the opponent is.
Yeah.
Your Zerg will always have these options available to them, and I will be able to punish it accordingly. So the map is going to be Ohana, which I think is a really tense map to have your game number 2 on.
Yep, we're going to keep the Doom computer out of the lobby for this one, so
that means that Total Biscuit's going to be following everything I do. I'm so excited. It's like having co-pilot. It's like being on a road trip. Moving into the game. Well, we're in the game. Let's
Hi.
go ahead and hop into it. And there we are in the top left corner, currently down 0-1, hoping he'll be able to showcase some incredible play here in game number 2. From Team Quantic, it is Hawk.
And his opponent currently at 1 game in this best of 3 series with a personal sponsorship from Myonix. In the Red Trunks playing Protoss to the southeast of Ohana, it is Naniwa.
Looks like Naniwa's going down the more expected route of going for an early pylon play at his natural expansion. But here, Hawk is going for an 11 pool.
Hello. Interesting. All right. Well, that throws a spanner in the works, except that it was immediately scouted. But he knew that it was going to be scouted, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you generally expect this. It's a bonus if he doesn't, but the real concern for Protoss is that this back-destructible rock is open. It takes 2 minutes for 6 Zerglings to kill off a destructible rock, so that does mean that Naniwa will be forced to build kind of an early second cannon. Can mess up a lot of builds, but in that circumstance, it will generally force your opponent away from Stargate and not much else. It will make him go for either Robo with sentries or Twilight with sentries.
Now, there's one build that everyone seems to mention when it comes to Ohana in this particular matchup.
I think I know what it is.
Do you really?
Go ahead and tell me anyways, John B.
Could it by some possible chance be Immortal Sentry all-in?
I don't know, ask Daisy.
It's a good question. Daisy is not here, so you're going to have to substitute.
The Immortal Sentry all-in, the ever-infamous 7 Gateway, 3 Immortal, 1 Warp Prism, plus 1 attack all-in play. So difficult for Zergs to deal with on this map. But over time, players are starting to learn how to deal with it. That if you cut the Protoss reinforcements off, and then you can surround him at this location. Having force fields along this back flank is too large. Even if you surround him here, having force fields on this angle and force fields on the other, just getting those good surrounds and using good delay tactics has started to give players the opportunity to hold it off with a high percentage of the time. And interestingly, we're not actually seeing any pressure applied by Hawk. He's just going to go 11 pool straight into macro mode.
Okay, that's an interesting move to say the least. But the question is, did Naniwa really react in any way to that? Did it actually screw with his build order at all?
Well, again, he did go for the forge and the cannon and all that infrastructure at the front quite early. His Nexus, as a result, was delayed a little bit. But when this happens to players, generally, again, what they'll do is just not go Stargate and instead go Sentry Robo or Sentry Twilight.
Well, I have to wonder if Hawk is going to be able to filter those builds down, because that 11 pull was certainly no accident. He's thinking, right, well, I forced my opponent to go down a certain tech path. I can narrow down the amount of builds that are viable from this particular position, and then I can work from there. Naniwa going for yet another probe scout. Going to have a look around, see what he can see the drone transfer. Gets a little bit of information.
This is a smart play from Naniwa, no doubt.
Yep.
I mean, he has seen his opponent just get the early pool and nothing else.
Absolutely, and interestingly enough, Hawk building additional 6-lings here. Doesn't seem to know where that probe went.
Oh, huh.
Wow.
I think I see what's happening. He's going to build a hatchery, cancel it, and then make a creep tumor underneath. Here it comes. There's the spine and the creep tumor. What a cool play by Hawk.
Oh, wow. The last time I saw this was Idra versus Mana in IPL 2 on a completely different map. It was on Terminus, as it happens, which is a terrible map. But whatever the case, well, it is. This is intriguing. It really is.
Now we see why an 11 pool happened. That queen had to begin movement down very, very early on. Naniwa will just wall off with pylons, build more photon cannons, and go for a Stargate. That's a very smart play in this situation. It will force an excess of defensive structures, but even so, I think Hawk's... Wow, Hawk going for a third base. This Stargate will shut that down pretty steeply.
Well, one way or the other, this is going to end in a rather explosive fashion by the looks of it. Spinecrawler now moving into position. It's going to start picking off some pylons, finding the weakest target it can. Second one coming in. Queen getting a chance to actually fight and do some offensive work, which is not exactly what they're designed for. Stargate's about to kick in, and Void Ray will be chrono boosted out almost immediately, I would imagine.
It looks like one suicidal stalker suddenly decides to back off at the last second. Void Ray coming up. this is going to be quite a tough fight for Naniwa at this point in time. I mean, if there's too many... oh gosh, I mean, if an evolution chamber goes down right now, that would be potentially disastrous. But it looks like Hawk just wants to do this to force his opponent out of certain openings. This is not a very big committal aggression, but it will goop up the third base.
Oh, yeah, that's an absolute pain. There's not supposed to be creep in your third base by the 8-minute mark. That's at least not like that, at any rate. So, one way or the other, this may have Naniwa just a little bit flustered. That Creep Gym will spot that Void Ray coming over there, but I don't see an Evolution Chamber.
Doesn't look like it. No.
Oh, there it is. Well, that's a little bit late, so he's going to need some Queens there pretty quickly.
Yeah, Hawk is basically doing a standard 3-base play as Zerg, but it's been delayed by about 1 minute as a result of this. All the usual structures are going down with that amount of delay, and now we see that this Void Ray will have the ability to do a little bit of damage to this Queen, but then we'll have to retreat. So it looks like thus far, Hawk's psycho crazy opening is going to pay off.
It's really well planned, honestly. I love this. This is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely doing the job so far, but it's a little gimmicky, to say the least, and I have to wonder if a player of Naniwa's caliber is going to fall to something like that. Yet more great flanking here from Hawk as he's able to pick away at the hull strength of that Void Ray.
I mean, already Hawk's build doesn't... I mean, it started off with a gimmick, but he's not following it up by building tons of spine crawlers and spore crawlers and trying to bust down the front door. No, he is actually just following it up with the standards. Yeah, look at that. +1 missile attack. There's the speed upgrade for Roaches, and now we have Naniwa, who's going to be forced to go for Immortal and a lot of gateway play, having to rebuild a Forge in his main, going to be behind the Zerg in upgrades.
Yeah, and at what point can Naniwa possibly take a third here? It's gotten to a ridiculous point where Creep is all over his potential third base. It's actually spreading to the other one as well. Not that you want to take that anyway, but his options are fairly limited. Hawk's going to know that. Nice little transfuse right there. Lift comes in, and here come the Phoenixes, and suddenly the Queen's not so useful.
Well, looks like the one lifting Phoenix is going to be in a little bit of trouble, but nope, Naniwa's micro's too good.
Great control by Naniwa. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Roach is now on the way. Intriguing. Well, Naniwa's going to need some units on the ground pretty fast. He's been focusing mostly on Stargate tech. And of course, he will be able to pick those Roaches off eventually, and is even picking off Overlords. He's actually caused a supply block right here for Hawk.
There's nothing really wrong with picking up Roaches in this circumstance. They're free kills. It's about 100 minerals, or 100 resources worth of damage.
Yep.
Picking off a couple of Overlords, always going to be good. And increasingly, Naniwa will punish even marginally sloppy play. Look at that, one free Queen. Finally, there's a halt to the production of the Phoenix Void Ray, and oh my god, he finds an Overlord vein.
Gonna mine that rich vein until it's exhausted. Oh, that didn't take long.
And there's still more Overlords from Hawk that are a little bit isolated. This really is the big danger moment for Hawk. Losing Overlords, Queens are starting to get a little vulnerable. We're seeing Queens move in from all sides. One Queen falls. Can he get the other one? He needs to be careful. Is he going to lose a second Void Ray?
Oh, Naniwa's control is ridiculous, and he doesn't have to worry too much about this. And Hawk's players kind of backfired a little bit. It forced Naniwa down a particular deck path. Down goes the Void Ray finally. But can he endure? Can he actually take these losses and then push forward and win? Naniwa in the background is building a hefty force. He's looking for +1. He's going to get 3 Immortals, so this Roach player is going to get progressively more dangerous. I don't know if he's going to have to sit there and play the attrition game.
2 more potentially vulnerable Queens. Looks like Naniwa will assault them, picking up both of them, microing that very, very well. More Queens down. Units lost tab. We are seeing incredible losses for Hawk, but I mean, this creep play is just so strong right now. Naniwa has decided that he cannot apply pressure any longer. 42 Roaches on the field. Where are they? It looks like some of them are scattered about.
Yeah, he needs to bring those together, certainly. Needs to get a great engagement angle as well. Attacking up the ramp with those is probably not the best idea, especially with force fields and 3 Immortals ready to go.
And of course, with this huge air force, Hawk has to build a significant mobile anti-air, Hydras or Infestors, just to be able to take another expansion. So Hawk is going to be content to head out into the middle of the map, see free Roaches, pick those off one at a time. Excellent little micro plays yet again.
Yeah, why not? You might as well take him in the center, even if it's just 1 Roach. Warp Prism on the way. Harassment-heavy play coming in. Now, if Hawk plays defensively from this position, he should be able to deal with that quite nicely, but of course, Naniwa's now been able to take his third.
Yep, and with Blink and +2 en route, it looks like Naniwa has stabilized from that early kooky opening that left him potentially down.
Very nicely done indeed. Wouldn't expect a player of Naniwa's caliber to be shaken by that kind of play, but damage was certainly done over the long term. Question is, what can Hawk do from this position? He's almost maxed out on roaches, and he's added a few infestors in the background. Does he wait for +2 before he goes? Does he start to push the third? If he does, then he's going to be in a really awkward spot with a lot of force fields, a lot of immortals. Could end up taking a great deal of losses. Doesn't have tunneling claws to easily get out of there either.
Well, I mean, right now, Naniwa is just going to continue to harass. Little Warp Prism play could potentially do a ton of damage to Hawk, because if you're stuck on 3-base play for a long time as Zerg, you are gearing up to do a push on 3 bases. You're going to get maxed on 3 bases, as we see Hawk getting maxed. And
that was... Oh, I don't like two fungals to take that Void Ray down. It's really awkward that Hawk's just having to run around with this massive ball of units, and they're getting choked, really, by going through those very narrow passes. And 2 fungals for 1 Void Ray, which honestly Naniwa didn't really need anyway. He's okay with that trade.
In this position, Hawk just kind of needs to do a 2-base push, and a 3-base push, and you expect the Zerg player to do that. And that's where this Warp Prism comes into play. This is an incredible defensive force. Will not quite be able to do much offense for a little bit of time, but you're hoping... Ooh, nice pickup.
He's awake. Oh, but nice follow-up with the fungal there. That should be a bunch of dead phoenixes. Unless he screws this up, he's going to need a couple more fungals to finish that one off. And Naniwa actually not even trying to move out of that one.
Just going to let it happen.
Eventually. Just lie back. Think of England. Oh, and the last one's going to get out of there.
Oh my gosh, the Soul Survivor. That's totally what I chose when I played Mass Effect.
Oh my. Well, here's the push coming in from Naniwa. He's almost maxed out. Looking for +2 right there. 10 spine crawlers being built in response to this. Good, honestly, because Hawk does need the extra supply, needs the extra defense as well, so that he can afford to make this big push. It's still a really scary army from both sides.
Extremely intimidating army from both sides. Actually, with only 57 drones, Hawk actually has an enormous army for a mid-game Zerg. Ordinarily, you would see closer to like 110 as an army supply for a Zerg at this point in time, but Hawk has been trying to build up enough to attack or defend, has not had the choice to, and there's some pretty strong fungals.
Yep.
A lot of damage still being dealt by the fungal growth at the front. Will he pick off any of the stalkers?
Oh, there's a follow-up as well. That's some dead sentries.
And, oh, the dead sentries are going to be enormous, and see you later, stalkers.
Nicely done right there. He waited for the perfect moment to land that one. It worked absolutely brilliantly. Here come the reinforcements, however. Hawk's going to take a next attack with, of course, reduced energy on those infestors. There is a nice fungal on the immortals. Misses the stalkers. The stalkers actually going right up to the natural.
No!
This is a terrible place to be, surely.
Oh my god, there's going to be a huge wall of force fields planting down at the front. The immortals down at the south side pretty much going to town on all the roach infestor. Now suddenly Hawk is having to re-pull back around, but are there enough force fields to block the ramp? You betcha.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden Naniwa has free reign in the main.
Yes, he really does. And what could have been a really awkward position for Naniwa, very vulnerable to force field. Well, more to point in fungals, but it didn't break them down. Can he get there? There's another fungal growth. He needs to get in there. He needs to do damage now. He needs to surround this force and crush it. Does he have the firepower to make that happen?
Well, the roaches are moving up, infested Terrans being lobbed from behind, but the immortal count just looks like it's a little bit too high. And Naniwa is dealing with just everything with such ease. More stalkers coming in from behind.
Yep, this force is not going to get cleaned up either. Hawk is really looking like he's out for the count here. Reeling from this counter-attack. A gimmicky opening didn't get him where he needed to be. Naniwa's comeback was fantastic, and this is looking very unlikely here for the hopeful from Quantic.
Oh, Hawk showed a really slick little opening, but Naniwa played standard, safe, and Hawk fell into the classic mid-game trap. GG. Too many mid-game units, too many roaches, and not enough versatility.
Absolutely, and Naniwa with masterful performance there. Handled that very well indeed. A slight smirk on the face, as is to be expected.
And of course, Naniwa, who successfully won that series, is now going to be playing again up on the main stage against a player we just saw win. It will be Naniwa versus Crank.
That's going to be a PvP for the ages. There's no real doubt about that, so we'll see how that one turns out. But a fairly swift win there for Naniwa, honestly. Hawk trying something a little bit special in Game 2. Didn't quite get him where he needed to be.
So, of course, keep in mind that every single match, the Lone Star Clash, will be cast. If you want to watch League of Legends, it's at Lone Star Clash 2 over at Twitch TV. The Starcraft streams are Lone Star Clash and Lone Star Clash 3. Coming up after this match, we will get the opportunity to see Naniwa versus Crank. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the stats from the eye trackers that went on during that series.
Oh yes, so there you go. And you can have a quick look at that. I believe by the looks of it, we only have Hawks. Yeah, Naniwa actually did not have the eye tracker running there, but you can have a look at the number of map looks per minute there, which is interesting. Hawks slightly less than some we've seen so far.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting, comparing it to Baby Knight, who we saw at the start of the game, who was looking nearly 30 times a minute down at the minimap, and only looking at his resources about 4 times a minute.
Whereas Hawk is doing 20, that's significant.
Yeah, 20 in both. It means that Hawk is bouncing down to his minimap and up to his minerals quite a bit, and this actually makes a lot of sense given how the style Hawk used in that last game. That is not exactly a norm build.
No.
That's not actually one that you can rehearse a lot with your opponent being caught by surprise every time. So you'd anticipate that with an unusual build, he would be looking at his resources frequently.
Absolutely. He needs to know exactly when he's got the cash in order to make that work, rather than having it all timed out, because it would be kind of ridiculous. We're also going to be having a look at a heat map coming in right here. And that is where all the damage happened, right in the center there.
Yeah, the more red regions are where the players are looking at more frequently.
Yep.
So you can see he's glancing down at the mini-map with incredible frequency, but for the most part, his eyes are staying up in the middle of the map, in all the usual expected locations.
Understandable.
But still interesting to see how often a player's eyes are literally right in the middle of the map.
Yeah, well, that's where most of the engagements end up happening, so I guess it makes sense there. But nice little bit of statistical analysis there of the eye tracker. Very cool indeed. And I believe we do have an interview coming up with the winner of that particular match, of course being Naniwa, with Anna on the main stage. Take it away.
All right, you guys, let's give it up for Naniwa. Did that match go about as you expected it to go?
No, I expected it to be way easier, but game 2 was really hard. I was behind a lot of the game.
Yeah, what did you think of that really interesting creep play in the opener?
Yeah, I think his build order was really genius. I did not expect it. Usually when they do spine crawlers in front of your base, it's an all-in. So I cut probes, but I scouted and I saw he had a third base going on, so I was really scared.
So did that affect your play, being scared, or did you just kind of take a deep breath, calm down, and play standard? How did you react to that surprise?
Well, he kept making units, because the logical thing for me would be to attack, but since he kept making units, I couldn't really attack, so I just tried to play it really calm, and it worked out in the end.
Well, you're going right into another match, so coming off of that match and having won, you probably feel pretty good, but like you said, you were surprised. So what's your mental state right now going into the next match?
I'm not really sure. Crank is pretty good, but I'm not sure what to expect, so I'll at least have fun no matter what, so.
There have been a lot of people screaming your name throughout the match. Have people been really supportive of you so far at this event?
Yeah, it's really nice, but I'm the kind of person who gets nervous very easily, so that's why if I don't respond to it, that's the reason. It's not that I don't appreciate it, but I crumble very easily under pressure.
So what can your fans do best to support you and make you feel good? Silent energy just wafting toward you?
Okay, only scream my name and not the opponent's name.
All right, thanks guys. Congratulations. Best of luck. All right, guys, we're coming back with more StarCraft 2. Don't move from your cushy little seats, and we'll see you in a moment.